fridge, so it stay cold.
Alright, we are live, I believe. Hello, everybody! Let me put on our intro music.
Splitting what falls and select legislation, decide. Searching terms you can't follow. See past my thoughts, almost gone strong.
Good evening. Good evening. I got a podcast with Dad, bro. This is former.
Alright, I think that's enough intro. I actually love that. Someone said, Waj said he was getting We Are Charlie Kirk vibes from that. I don't really can't say that he's not wrong, but I think that was pretty good intro music. Yeah, you guys couldn't hear it because if I hold down my push to talk, I think it does like double, or I don't know. I'm still working this out. Anyway, so welcome everybody. I apologize. We've kind of been missing in action the last, I think, 3 weeks now. I've had a lot of work. Our schedules didn't really align. I was out of town. I went to California, which was super fucking bizarre. It's like I had this experience one time when a long time ago when I was like deep into like my spiritual practice. I was out there in the country in Mendocino County. Some of you guys might know me back. My listeners might know me back from that time when I was out there making vlogs from my pot plants in the backyard of my mom's house. And I went from being out there like in like the clear air of the countryside. I went to go meet a girl in San Diego, and I remember just like dropping down in San Diego. It literally felt like the grid of the city itself was like I could like feel it in my mind. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like I could feel it like ley lines, like technological electric ley lines in my brain, and it didn't feel particularly good. And I when I went back to Silicon Valley, I had a similar experience. It was like I could just feel like just the heaviness in the air. Like I could just the buildings are so soulless. You know, I remember walking by the Adobe headquarters in downtown San Jose, and it's just like this architect, like this oppressive architecture, and I could feel the tension of the energy of 100,000 H-1B visa Pajits scamming everybody in their offices and hurrying to make deadlines and pay bills and stuff like this. The people that I found there in Silicon Valley were just like, they were all like staring at the ground, and they looked like anxious, and they were pale and pasty and unhealthy. It's just bizarre. I don't know why anybody would even live out there anymore, but I digress. Anyway, we are back.
Yeah, no, I thought that Californians were all supposed to be, tanned and in shape and hot and stuff, but Silicon Valley has changed all that. You have all these pasty dorks, it sounds like.
It really was. Even like my sister, I was expecting my sister and my brother-in-law to be more health conscious, but they were just like eating slop, and a lot of Indian slop because my brother-in-law's Indian, but it's just all carbs. And even when I went out, like it wasn't the same crowd. It's ironic because I saw more of that young, like healthy, like Hyperborean energy here in Florida. There's so many like Midwest stock, like young white dudes that come out here to go to university, and it just feels a lot more vital with everybody outside. I kind of prefer Florida, to be honest. But anyway, Happy New Year's, everybody. How was
When you started off, about ley lines and all that shit, I was thinking that you were going to say you were realigned, like going back to California did you good? It healed your chakras or something.
No, it didn't. And I'm originally from Silicon Valley, but it was just so different. Last time I lived there was back in like 2004, so it's been 20 years since I lived in the Bay Area, and everything has just consolidated and become just more and more soulless, and goofy. I remember me and my sister were walking with my nephew, and we ran into two of my sister's neighbors, and it was like I had to like keep from like laughing. It was like they were reading from some like gay like Reddit script. Like everything that they said was like this canned response of like safe, social interaction. Like they were like afraid to color outside the lines to say anything like unsafe. It was just really fucking bizarre. No, it healed me in the sense that I realized that I'm good where I'm at right now, and I really don't have an interest in being a part of that tech social climber shit, and I never did. And that's why I don't live there. But anyway, how was your guys'?
You got Gatorade.
Still
You
giving
got Gatorade now. You're a Florida man.
I'm becoming a Florida man. I really am. How was your guys' holidays and your New Year's?
Yeah, for me, I went back home to Minnesota. I saw like both sides of my family, and it was kind of a night and day experience for me. My uncle has a new house. He has, a relatively new wife as well. So he's been divorced and remarried several times. The first time he was with a white American woman, and that didn't work out, but that's where his only child is from. And then the second wife was a gold digger from Ukraine, and now he's moved on to a gold digger from Vietnam, who nobody, and in particular the women in my family, don't like her. They can see right through her. She's actually related in some way. I think she's the niece of the gold digger who got with my grandpa, but now that my grandpa is in poor health, I don't see her around anymore. She didn't really stick around. So that was awkward. That was tense. I can't even understand a lick of what she fucking says. So I don't know how he does. I mean, I guess, she's like his Boomhauer and he's like Hank Hill or something like that. There must be something going on there. Or maybe he just doesn't really care what she has to say, which would honestly be the funnier option.
It just stares at her until her clothes come off.
Yeah,
It just
basically.
stares at her until her clothes come off.
Yeah. But then we went over to my dad's side of the family too, and it was just a completely different atmosphere. Everybody's white. First off, second off, They actually cooked authentic Polish food, so that was nice stuff that I hadn't. I don't eat at any point in the year, but it's really cool that they know how to make that stuff. And yeah, no, like I got offered drinks like until I actually drank. So that's kind of how it is over on my dad's side of the family. And then we went to go see our friend down in Kansas City. We also spent a little time in Branson, Missouri, which is weird. It gives off weird vibes to me. You know, I mean, like there's this movie theater that's pretty explicitly a Christian movie theater, but it's like huge and it looks like an ancient temple almost, and it's like on top of the hill. And then there's like a pretty explicitly Christian zoo as well over there, and Silver Dollar City, famously, you know, quote unquote, a family friendly environment. Lots of Jesus merch in there, so it makes me wonder, like, okay, is Branson, Missouri, just like propped up by some mega church pastor somewhere who we don't know who he is? I don't know. It would be interesting to investigate Branson.
That's
But
wild.
overall, not a bad holiday season.
That's nice.
Mine was terrible. Thank you for asking, Watch. Mine was completely off. I had a hemorrhoid on the flight to Georgia, and then I had to spend the Christmas and everything in my childhood room, which I did not enjoy. I did not enjoy the fact that I did not have a hotel or anything like that. I got sick on the plane. Not sick from air sickness, like literally sick. I caught something. And then I spent most of Christmas and New Year's Eve in sort of a haze. Like, what day is it? Why am I full of turkey? How was your Christmas, Muad?
My Christmas went well. The usual family reunion, and I broke my diet for like the first time in 4 years, so I was able to eat
Oh, I think
regular
that
food.
sucks.
So I'm healing, and part of the family went on Hajj for 2 weeks, and I got to stay home alone. It's cool.
We got to go through that with that plan to get you smuggled into one of the WrestleManias in Saudi Arabia and get you a free ticket to Hajj. We got to go through with that plan one day.
That would be awesome. They did the tour. I don't want to say tour group, but they usually set up a package, and you go with in a group of people, and it was hosted by people connected to my order specifically. So they had a dude that knew all the underground Sufi spots within Arabia, and they were able to visit some holy sites that the Saudi government either blocked off or had discreetly hidden with construction, and were able to meet some guys,
That's interesting.
some saints.
Wow.
So,
I would think that that's kind of difficult to do in Saudi Arabia, but I guess as long as they're like Sunni, they just like leave them alone.
no, you don't. You actually don't tell any Saudi authorities where you're going. And you're supposed to enter, at least, go to these places in like groups of 2 or 3 at a time, so they don't suspect anything. Because the religious police have certain routes that they go, certain patrols that they go on, and when Mullah Sheikh Hisham was in the country, and he did a chanting, a group zikr in our litanies in an open public space once, and I think it was the year before last, and they were blacklisted, and interrogated. it resolved itself because the security guard who didn't work in the building, who nobody saw before or after this event occurred, cleared him.
I need to stop at
You
the
know, my
security
favorite
game.
conversion.
Jim, get on the case.
You know, my favorite conversion story ever from the Islamic world is Malcolm X's when he went to Saudi Arabia for Hajj, and the officials stopped him and asked him a bunch of questions like, "What do you believe?" And he just started telling them about Yaqub and the Bible and the Nation of Islam. And they were like, "Dude, that's not Islam at all." They walked him through all of Islam, and he converted overnight.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
That was Muhammad Ali.
they're required to ask everybody. Because non-Muslims are not allowed within the two holy cities of Mecca and Medina. So even if you've been Muslim for like your entire life, they're still required to question you on certain things. It's kind of loosened up because they're getting more and more retarded. Saudi, especially the whole yoga craze has hit Saudi, so you can now attend yoga classes in the middle of the desert.
That's making progress. So watch. Did any of your relatives talk to you about the whole Somali situation up there in Minnesota?
No, not whatsoever. We don't really talk politics in my family so much anymore. That was something that we used to do. It was mostly prompted by my grandpa, who, again, now he's in ill health. He has dementia, and even before then, we kind of put a moratorium on that. We're also quite politically divided over on my dad's side of the family as well, and we just don't bring it up to kind of keep it.
Yeah, I didn't really talk too much politics with my family. I get the feeling that my sister is, I think she's kind of a secret undercover, not right winger, but very conservative leaning. And I don't know what happened with that, but I will say that my half Indian nephew, his name is Aryan. So
Okay.
so there's that. Yeah, I know it's funny. I was talking to my sister and I said Aryan, and she's like, "Oh no, it's not like the German. It's like Aryan." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." Like these.
Same rule.
Same thing, same fucking
Yeah,
thing.
it's the same word, kid. So yeah, but it's
Is this
awesome.
the nephew that looks like the Oblivion Elf?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's the one. Yeah, he's
He's a
great.
Bosmer.
Great kid. Yeah, he's a reincarnated elf like my child as well. So we got a lot of Bosmers coming into the world right now to help mitigate this transition from the Kali Yuga out into the Satya Yuga. Speaking of changing cycles, so we come together for this podcast today to discuss first and foremost the recent news out of Venezuela, where unless you've been living under a rock, you have seen the clips of Maduro being perp walked through the DEA's office apparently in New York City. This is really amazing. I remember I woke up in the middle of the night the other night, and I saw some like clip of Venezuela like being bombed or something like that, and I was like, nothing ever happens. It's just going to be one of those one-off things where a couple bombs go off and like nothing goes down. And then I woke up in the morning and they fucking had Maduro, which is crazy. So like really showing the rest of the world how to do these special forces operations. This shit was like over in a couple hours from what I understand. I don't really know the details. Anybody know the details of actually what happened, like how we did this?
So we got two teams of special forces guys, one in the Chinook and one in a helicopter. The Chinook is carrying the main team. The helicopter team was to secure other government installations, and we covered them with a drone, some Hornets, and a few F-1, let's say 22s or F-150s. So they did a breach and clear on the presidential estate.
Wow.
Yeah, this took place on yesterday, 3 a.m., and while it was taking place, U.S. was able to turn off all of the lights in Caracas. Now, how they were able to do that wasn't explained. Trump mentioned it, and there's footage of this happening as well. Like people took out their phones, they were recording at the time because shit was popping off. And then you can see all the lights turn off at once. And it could be something cool, like, maybe we have a new way of employing an EMP, or it could just be something as mundane as, we paid off a guy to flip a switch in a power distribution center. We don't know. That wasn't it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So wait, Mwad, can you just run that by me one more time? Exactly the logistics of how we did this. We had one team
Okay,
securing
two
government.
special forces teams.
Okay.
One in the Chinook and one in a smaller helicopter. The Chinook
That's all it
landed.
took. That's all it took. Eat a fat log, Putin. You didn't take Ukraine in 2 weeks with an entire fucking army, and we did it in 1 day.
Yeah, this kind of throws the need for sending thousands of American soldiers into Iraq. Anyway, I'll leave that for later. But we had two teams. I think the first team in the Chinook was the one that landed under cover of drones and F-22s and Hornets and 20 different aircraft anyway. And they repelled down the building and bridge and cleared it real fast, got them out, took them into the Chinook. Then the Chinook flew out to Guantanamo Bay. They did some preliminary processing, flew them to New York, and then from New York to Washington, D.C.
How the hell did we even get to the presidential palace like that? I know I saw some Twitter thing, post from some tanky tryhard or some shit from November, was saying how they have all these S-300 missiles and shit from Russia, and how that America could never bomb them and stuff. How did that? Do we know how that even went down?
We were probably too fast, because it seems like we've been planning this for at least a year. In terms of execution. So it's.
What's your source on this, by the way? Because I'd love to read about it.
Because my source is a guy who looked at the at what units were activated. He usually does airplane stuff, but it was through Instagram Reels to get most of the details anyway. So
Yeah, drop a link if you can find that, and then we can drop a link for our listeners in the comments.
Yes, I will.
You said he did airplane stuff. Is he one of those guys that goes on 4chan and monitors the signals and is there's nukes in the sky, the birds are lying?
So this is an open source intelligence sort of guy?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. He also did a report on that one Somalian that tried to do 9/11 2.0 recently.
It's not just a guy who's posting, "Look, just flew over my house."
So that's what I know. That's what was explained to me, and that's what makes the most sense to me. Having relatives in the military, that's what makes sense to me.
I'm still fascinated by how clean and quick that all this was. So we managed to fly helicopters right over this motherfucker's mansion and just drop down, and apparently he didn't have very good security, apparently.
No, not at all. They apparently were still looking for him after he was kidnapped.
So he must have taken out the communication for sure.
We had the USS Iwo Jima parked right on the coast of the country, and
That's been there for like a couple months now.
yes.
No,
So we got
apparently,
slow
apparently
walk.
there were some lives lost. They Maduro has an all Cuban security staff. Those are his guards are they're Cubans, and several of them were killed by
They were at least 25 of them were BTFO'd.
Nice.
So it was we could have done that to Saddam. We didn't, and it was a blood sacrifice. Welcome
You
to
know
my
why? It's because Bush.
Well, I
didn't
mean,
have the
Saddam.
funds.
I mean, you had to get through the tanks first, because Saddam. I think he had the fourth largest regiment of tanks or whatever unit you call that in the world at the time. It's important to realize too. You're right. The parallel that you can draw with Ukraine only goes so far. Ukraine has some very powerful backers, right? Venezuela, they're working with like old jets and shit. Like these are not, very well armed motherfuckers.
Could I ask real quick? What exactly is in it for Russia? Like, why did Russia ostensibly have these like missile batteries and stuff? And is it just to like poke a finger in our eye, or like what? How is Russia benefiting from protecting quote unquote Maduro?
Because China is.
So they were taking.
The
It
Chinese.
also helps them control the. It also helps them control the global, access to fossil fuels. It helps them by telling Venezuela how much to pump and where to drill and that sort of thing. They're first of all teaching them how to drill and all that, but second, they can control how much they drill and how prosperous the oil supply is for making year.
So they're able to say, okay, don't put out that many barrels because we need to have the prices go up right now. Yeah, okay, I see.
Yeah. So the China's main plan with at least oil and as well as developing African countries is to have the dollar, the petrodollar, replaced by the yuan.
Right.
So by the yen.
So
I will say though, Saddam would have looked badass in those Dr. Respect glasses they put Maduro in.
Hell
yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
Um,
No. So China got about 4% of its oil from Venezuela, but Venezuela exported about 80% of its oil to China. So Venezuela needed China more than China needed Venezuela.
But I thought,
But there was a plan in the works for China to help Venezuela to produce more oil because they got down to the latest figures were about 1 billion barrels per year, right? But at its peak, right back when the country was managed a little bit more competently, the peak was a little over 3 billion barrels per year.
so they have all. I remember reading that, or maybe it was some talking head in America saying that Venezuela has like pretty much more oil than anywhere in the world. Were they just not extracting it,
Correct.
or they're just too incompetent to get the oil out of the fucking ground, or what?
Yeah, I'm going to chalk it up to incompetent.
That makes sense.
This is a country that couldn't feed itself to the point that they were eating zoo animals, by the way.
It's really fucking pathetic. I know.
Yeah, sanctions have a lot to do with that. Sanctions have a lot to do with that.
You said Haitians?
Sanctions.
Although Haitians are worse than sanctions, to be honest. I see.
They also eat cat.
Right. The both of them eat cats. I see a lot of Venezuelans in Tampa Bay, and they drive me fucking insane. So my overarching take on all of this is if they can go home to a more successful country, then that will benefit everybody.
Yeah, that's
8 million people had to leave.
It's really
8 million people had to leave Venezuela because of Maduro and Chavez. So if we could get them back, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, they're leaving. They're leaving now because there's no clear and competent successor to Maduro.
Right.
Right. Peter Zeihan, okay, a popular commenter on geopolitics. He brought this up. There's probably going to be a power vacuum now. That is, if Maduro doesn't return, and stay tuned, everybody, I have a theory that suggests he may return. But if he doesn't, there's going to be a power vacuum. It's not going to be conducive to business to actually start building infrastructure again. The building efforts may be undermined by terrorists, leftist militias, and other vigilantes. So he's actually quite doom pilled on the situation right now, even more so than I am. I think what's going to happen is even if ExxonMobil or whichever name your oil company is able to develop the infrastructure there, the Venezuelan people are not going to see much of the benefit there. So previously, the Maduro government reinvested profits from the oil industry back into education, healthcare, infrastructure, pensions, things that meet that help people meet a basic standard of living, right? They're not living in luxury, but at least they have basic needs met. If you take that away from them, you pull the rug, okay, they're going to turn to drugs, they're going to turn to crime, they're going to come here.
I can't imagine that
They don't have to. They don't have to. They don't have to pull the rug out. They can literally just keep things operating as smoothly as it has been, and it's not going to get worse than it was in 2013? Is that when people were eating the zebras and shit? There's no reason to be doom-pilled about it. I know Peter Zeihan is doom-pilled, but everybody listens to Peter Zeihan when it benefits them to listen to him, and he really is only right 25% of the time. He was right about Ukraine, the invasion, but only people who were listening to Russian propaganda were incorrect about that happening.
I can't imagine.
Okay, that's why we're here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting into it. We're here to argue. It's going to be a smackdown on Venezuela. Get hyped.
I can't imagine that we would have done this without having a solid plan in place. So, what exactly has anybody from the American administration even said what the fuck it actually means by having us go in and manage this country?
Right. So this is one thing that Trump said that he didn't explain. So he said, yes, we're going to be running things until we can transfer the power to a legitimate authority. Okay, yeah, that's one of the steps in the
and then Marco Rubio
stages of war. Well, yeah, and here's the thing, after Delta Force kidnapped Maduro and his wife, they just fucking left. So okay, so how are we running things? We don't have boots on the ground there. How are we running things? Are we just barking orders to the vice president who we insist is now the president? But even if you ask her, she says, no, Maduro's still the president. So by what means, by what mechanism are we controlling the situation in Venezuela right now? It's not explained. And so that's why I think that's evidence for my theory, which, again, we can get into, that Maduro is not going to see a day in prison. He's not going to be incarcerated in the United States on fucking domestic drug charges. He's going to go back to Venezuela, and he's either going to assume power, again, resume power, or maybe not, but he's going back to Venezuela.
They still have a president absentia that they could just pull over from Europe. But that would be a really stupid move. And my hot take is you don't need a president to run a country. We could just leave it how it is and let them sort it out for themselves. But as far as governing Venezuela, I think they're going to do the same thing they did to Afghanistan, which is set up a local government and arm and train a new military, rather than have our military be the bulk of the peacekeeping force, because that's just less expensive.
I mean, which is
No. Well, but even in Afghanistan, we had the friendly government that nobody there really liked. okay? And we still had to occupy the territory. We still had to commit resources there. And as soon as we pulled out, right? Guess what? The Taliban's back in power, baby.
Yeah, yeah,
We don't know though. We don't know though the situation on the ground in Venezuela. There could be, for all we know, and this is we don't know. There could be a Pinochet type figure in the wings of the military. That's a far out there cry. That's a hope in the dark. But still, we don't know exactly how friendly the military is to us.
That's what I was gonna say.
Well, they're not, but we're still going to raise, and it would make the most sense to raise a local loyalist armed forces rather than have the bulk or the majority of the peacekeeping force be our own troops. The thing about Afghanistan is you have people from a tribal background who are more tied to family and familial bonds than you are to any sense of national identity. And we tried rekindling a national identity that hadn't seen the light of day since the Afghan Anglo War, and that did not go well because we were fighting a people that do not operate under the assumption of a nation state. In Venezuela, they do know what a nation state is.
Well, I think the crux of the issue is still that there's no clear successor to Maduro. The vice president is insisting that Maduro is still the president, and even the opposition leader, I forget her name, starts with an M. Trump doesn't like her. Trump says that Trump doesn't want to see her in power, essentially. So again, evidence toward the theory that Maduro is coming back. And Maduro is coming back because now he's under the jurisdiction of the Federal District of New York. Okay, now I'm going off. He's under the jurisdiction of the Federal District of New York, which is notorious liberal judges come out of that federal district. And they're the ones, every time that Trump gets legally challenged on something that he wants to do, it's usually from a judge from the Federal District of New York. You could have handed him off to, like, Joe Arpaio country or something. And literally any federal district is going to be more compliant with Trump than the Federal District of New York. They don't have legal standing to charge him. We don't have jurisdiction over a foreign national who's also the head of the state, who should have diplomatic immunity in most contexts, and there's no credible evidence that he has any connection to the cartels anyway. So I'm pretty sure a federal judge is going to send Maduro back to Venezuela, and if it happens sooner rather than later, he will resume power again. And it is enough that Trump has demonstrated that he could take out Maduro, right? And so Maduro is going to play ball, and he said that he was going to play ball, right? He does fucking streams from his Toyota Corolla or whatever, where he says, "Hey, we're going to if it's about the drugs, we can work something out. Okay, we're going to come up with a plan. We can work with you, United States, to stop the flow of drugs, and we can cut a deal on the oil too." So I think he's going to return the power more likely than not if it happens soon enough. And he's going to be willing to play ball a little bit more.
So we just kidnapped him so that we could have leverage?
Well, now I'm confused. Is this a theory or is it a prediction? Like, are you theorizing that Trump intends for him to go back? Or is it a prediction that he will go back whether or not Trump wants it to or not?
I think that this is part of Trump's plan, actually, because he wants to avoid another Iraq, right? He doesn't want to commit huge resources to Venezuela, and that's why there isn't a U.S. military presence in Venezuela right now. Otherwise, there would be. Otherwise, we would have essentially an effective military dictatorship in Venezuela occupying the land, but Trump doesn't want that. He was a huge critic of the Iraq War. He wants to avoid that. He wants to achieve his objectives as cleanly as possible.
I don't know. It seems like a very high risk maneuver. It sounds like libertarian hopium a little bit. That this is just like I think Trump would go for another Iraq war if if the certain circumstances were for it. I also don't know about this woman that's supposed to be the opposition leader. Isn't she like promising weird things about moving the embassy to Jerusalem and shit like that?
Yeah, Trump.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. And so, in the case that Trump doesn't want Maduro back in power, it's going to be some other Zionist, because of course it's always going to be a Zionist when it comes to, friendly power to the United States, not particularly her. I have heard other right-wing types cope and say, oh, yeah, because Trump doesn't like her, it's not going to be a Zionist. Well, no, it's going to be a Zionist of some sort. Maybe not her, if it's not Maduro.
Trump doesn't like her because she's getting all those juju comes from Bibi. She's slobbering on Bibi's balls a little bit too much. Trump's getting jealous.
I think Trump just doesn't like women in political office. Name a woman in a political office he's actually gotten along with. He puts his hand on the glass ceiling.
He's stacked so many women in his administration. That's the counterpoint.
Pam Bondi.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Well, I mean, eye candy for him. He likes having eye candy around.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I keep grabbing by the pussy, dude.
Did I tell you guys I saw Pam Bondi at my site a couple months ago?
No, that's wild.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. Go ahead.
She was in Tampa. Actually, 2 of the sites that we do security for, she visited. She came to the Pride and Passion, I think, or it was the Arts and Aces, one of the signature events down here at the Tampa Museum of Arts. Pam Bondi showed up when my team was on duty. It was pretty crazy. You know what's funny is we had these FBI agents walking around, and they were supposed to be incognito, right? But like you had like all these like high society, like rich people at this party, and the FBI agents were walking around with like jeans and like baseball caps on. Like everybody is like, okay, real incognito guys. And then she went over to another site we do security for, Park Tower in downtown Tampa, because that's where the Florida State District Attorney's office is. So she was over there, and it was wild. I was expecting there to be a lot more commotion around her, but she was kind of, I don't know if everybody knew that she was going to be there. I didn't even know if she was going to be there when I showed up. The museum security team is like gave me like a wink and a nod. They're like, "Oh, hey, guess what? Pam Bondi's going to be here." So I don't think they even like told her, but yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, no.
Does she look 61 years old in person? Because she doesn't look 61 on TV.
No, she looks good. I didn't really get a clear close up of her. I was when she came through, I was at the top of these stairs, making sure nobody went in the galleries. But from what I read, she looked pretty good.
Yeah, she's got to get bogged up though. She's got to get the facelifts and everything so she can fit in with the rest of the administration.
She's got to consult Laura Loomer, right? Well,
oh my god!
Basically, make herself look like
Laura
a fucking
Loomer.
So
Laura Loomer, and what's the name of that? The woman who's always on the. If you're a legal immigrant, this runway is your future. Those ads. I don't remember her name now.
Christy Nome.
Yes, Christy Nome, the woman who shot her dog. Yeah. Or is that right?
I totally would, Christy Nome, for sure. So
all right. Anyway, my theory is the reason why all of this happened. So what were Trump's objectives? Okay, first and foremost, okay, it's not the drugs. I think everybody here understands that. It's not even the oil's not even the biggest thing. Okay, the biggest thing is embarrassing Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, and to show the world that they were unable to come to the defense of their ally. And so now the world is going to think to themselves, why would I ally myself with Russia or China above the United States if the United States is able to like come and still fuck with us? I better, ally myself with the top G, the top dog. And Trump achieved that objective. He doesn't need Maduro in prison to achieve that.
No, I disagree. I think it really is the drugs. I think it really is the oil. I don't think China and Russia embarrassing them are necessarily, like this didn't impact his view of them or whatever, his plans. Like, yeah, we're going to stick it to China and Russia, but I don't think that's an intention, no.
I told you guys, I was watching Max Blumenthal like a month ago, and he said that the noise in Trump's ear to take out Maduro was coming from Wall Street. And I noticed that there did seem that does seem to be what we've been focusing on. There was that clip I think someone sent from Twitter of the commander of the military in the hemisphere talking about how that they have so many resources in South America, lithium and oil and all this stuff. So she also mentioned that it was there was national security concerns here, which if you look at the broad trends of geopolitics, it certainly seems, and it seemed like this for a long time if you've been paying attention, that the elites are sort of circling their wagons for like almost like an apocalyptic scenario. You know, you got like fucking Mark Zuckerberg out there in Hawaii. He's got this big compound with like beef cattle and stuff like this. It seems like the people at the top are like waiting in the wings for some sort of catastrophic restructuring of the world, you know. And if that's the case, then or even if it's just like, okay, well, things are going to get a little bit more tense and more competitive as the resources kind of dwindle and we get, you know, peak Nigerian and you get kind of some, or I'd say some demographic shifts across the globe in the next 20 or 30 years, that the competition for resources could become a little bit more competitive. So I think that is also part of the game plan that's going on here, is they're kind of trying to wrap our arms around what we can, so that we can secure these resources in a future that is possibly very competitive and it devolves into like a war time situation.
Okay. So no, I want to go back. Wally, I want to challenge you on something. So what evidence is there? So what in your mind is Maduro's connection to the drug?
Well, if he's not on top of it and controlling it, and like just the right leader of a narco state, he's certainly competent that he can't stop it. I mean, we keep blowing up ships from Venezuela that are sending us drugs.
So why don't we take out the president of Mexico? That's where the drugs are coming from, primarily from Mexico.
They're coming through Mexico.
Okay, and they have a leader who's incompetent to be able to stop it.
Well, they have a leader that's also a Jew, so.
Oh, okay. So yeah, okay, that would make sense. Why he would not want to touch it.
I wouldn't want to touch
I know. I mean, for real. I do think that the president of Mexico, they've had a friendlier relationship than the president of Mexico in the past. So yeah, but as far as the drugs and everything like that, we focused mainly on C drugs for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. I haven't looked at exactly the drug economics or anything like that, but it does seem like shipping seems to be the future more so than, or at least that's my estimation based on the way the administration is acting. It could be that there's only one ship a year and we've just been blowing them up for fun. I don't know.
I feel
So
like... Go ahead, Mon.
with
You say what?
I was gonna bring up Daniel Weber and Dirk Alliance, you know, again, or was it Daniel Webb, who was able to follow the trials, the transcripts of trials of the Sandinistas after the Nicaraguan Civil War, and how we aided the Contras. I mean, aided the Sandinistas against the Contras, right? And when this occurred, we had agents embedded with the Sandinistas to set up a cocaine pipeline that went through Venezuela that went through Mexico all the way to the United States. And part of the reason why Ollie North lost his position as was he Secretary of Defense at the time during Ronald Reagan?
Oh man.
Yeah, he also got a job on Fox News immediately after Iran-Contra.
Yeah, it was, he was selling coke. The United States was selling coke to get arms to subdue Iran. Buying coke to send arms to Iran. For that
Yeah, we
reason,
really did black man, I remember.
we have. For that reason, we still have intelligence connections to at least the Mexican cartel. We've cut off the Nicaraguan and Venezuelan cartel, but we need to help it's in our best interest, us meaning the United States as a nation state, to maintain a steady flow of drugs so that we can have it in our back pocket. Because China has got they control the opium trade and also they oversee the Golden Triangle with the heroin trade. So with overseas drugs, that's just for the public eye. It's very dramatic to say you captured essentially modern pirates trying to smuggle dangerous substances on the coastline, and you could see the Coast Guard selflessly jumped on top of a submarine. It's very, very thrilling for the general public. Does it stop the drug trade? No, because that would be stupid of us to do that.
I think that when Trump uses drugs as a pretext for taking out Maduro, that's the subtext of that is also directed toward China as well and its role in fentanyl making its way over to the United States. So I think that was just a subtle
Well, it's
warning.
easier to deal with. It's easier to deal with Venezuela than it is, I imagine, Mexico or China. But I guess another question would be like, when it comes to the drug trade, do you think if Maduro actually did stuff to stop the drugs going in, he would have ended up captured? Like, was he not playing ball or anything like that?
We would have killed him no matter what, or captured him no matter what.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, like, it very obviously stopped being about the drugs when Donald Trump started talking more about the oil than about the drugs. And I'm not saying that the oil's not a factor; it's a huge factor. I just don't think it's the primary factor for what happened. And then B, when we blockaded the entire country and seized an oil tanker, it stopped being about the drugs.
I can't.
What about the oil, though?
Yeah, it is definitely oil. I can't imagine that that Trump is particularly interested in any like Iran Contra tier like cocaine smuggling. I think that's kind of more of like a despotic like old school blue blood like George Bush lineage type thing. Trump is a businessman.
Yeah.
I feel like that Trump feels that it's just a waste of time to dither around with drugs as opposed to just like investing in the oil industry and like extracting all the money that way.
Well,
Yeah.
right. Well, my point of contention with Budge is we did this simply to embarrass China. Don't get me wrong. We've done espionage routines to embarrass our enemies abroad numerous times, but as far as this being a petty get one over on the sleeping dragon across the sea, I don't see that being the main issue. I see the main issue being that China was making was trying to foster a coalition in South America, particularly with both Venezuela, South and Central America, with Venezuela, and with what's the guy with the chainsaw? His campaign, the libertarian.
That's Malay. You're thinking of Malay.
Malay. So there is this, and the fact that Hamas and Hezbollah have training camps in Brazil. It's the China wants to, like it's doing in Central Africa, is to propose the idea that they should have a one directional trade agreement with China and develop their countries, because China is slowly losing the goodwill of their sub-Saharan trade partners.
I have an announcement to make. My internet just came back on, so everyone, like, if we could praise Tingry real quick. But thank you very much. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ahmad. I missed a lot of what you said. I was trying to look up this quote. Right. This is from Michael Ledeen. It's kind of a semi-famous quote. He was a consultant to the National Security Council, the State Department, and the Department of Defense. So he is an insider. He says every 10 years or so, the U.S. needs to pick up some crappy little country and throw it against the wall just to show the world that we mean business. So I think that was honestly the primary motivation. It's just a show of strength. That's just my perspective on the matter.
We certainly did it a lot better than Putin with his special military operation in the Ukraine. That's for damn sure. So.
Well, yeah, because Russia doesn't have any.
This
Russia
is our
doesn't have any
2008
backing.
Georgia War.
Venezuela doesn't have any backing. So yeah, obviously, if you have powerful friends, you can win. I mean, you can at least be a contender in a war of attrition like that.
I'm just shocked that all the units they parachuted into the country died.
Russia?
Really?
Yes. All those special forces units that they embedded, that they parachuted, they died within several months.
Of like what, starvation, or what do you mean?
Of combat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Probably the drones that the EU and the United States are just spamming into Ukraine for their use.
Yeah, it's wild. You have German generals critiquing Russia's approach into Kursk, which is Kursk.
That's funny.
It's very odd.
It is sort of funny to see the ritualistic way Russia goes about war. It's like reenacting World War II over and over again. Just, I guess if it's not broke, don't fix it. But still, it is weird how little they change. I mean, they are using drones now, but and they are adapting to drone warfare, but still.
So what do you guys think is going to be the outcome in the immediate future in Venezuela? It's such a weird lull right now. I'm kind of surprised that there hasn't been more chaos. I'm kind of surprised that the Venezuelan military is apparently just sitting on their thumbs. Are they in talks with the U.S. establishment? Is there some kind of plan for how to fill the vacuum in Venezuela?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that the top brass in Venezuela is aware of that Maduro is going to return, right? So I think this is more evidence of my theory.
I seriously doubt that. There, and I honestly, I think like the simplest explanation usually being the one that happens. I think that generally when you have a dictator, when you have a cult of personality, you like fucking remove them, and everybody's like broke out of a friggin' spell. Like they don't know what to do. They're looking around at each other. They've all been
Well,
subordinate to this
the,
figure for so long that nobody has the initiative to do anything. There's no institutions in place. It's just a complete vacuum.
I don't believe
the
Trump
Okay.
believes in catch and
On
release.
what grounds is Maduro a dictator? He literally had post-election
whatever.
last year.
Cult of personality. Is that better?
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
that's what I mean. But what were you gonna say about him not being a dictator?
Oh no, that was it. I was just challenging that phrase that you were using.
Okay. Well, I mean, are you saying that he had a separation of powers, or he had his own three branches of government under him, or what?
No, I mean I'm not really aware of the structure of Venezuelan government, but I know that he was elected to power.
No,
Yeah, so is Putin.
that's what I meant is that it's a cult of
Yeah,
personality.
so was Biden.
And
But people question the legitimacy of the 2020 election too. In this,
I mean,
Yeah, well, I've never questioned. I've never questioned the legitimacy on air. I might have had some private doubts of my own, but I don't think I've ever. Yeah, I wouldn't stand by it in publicly and say the 2020 election was fake and all that shit.
we can
no,
definitely.
my only point is that when I'm reading about Maduro being a dictator, it's often brought up that oh yeah, the legitimacy of the election is often called into question. People question it. Yeah, probably your own talking heads question it, but it's never really explained. It's never really explained in detail or no evidence given. It's just like it plays to the biases of the American mind. This guy's a communist. Who would vote for a communist? When
Yeah, I see your point.
people say, quote unquote, that the 2020 election was stolen here in America too. People say that, and so you can imagine, a Russian, Chinese, or just any foreign media outlet calling into question the legitimacy of American democracy on that ground alone because people say it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a little different when you're coming in the aftermath of Hugo Chavez. I know that Maduro isn't exactly like Chavez's top guy and everything like that, but you do have to take the question of is this country like legitimate to balls to the wall? Do they believe in democracy? Do they have like a track record of caring about such things? I don't know, and I don't think that South America really I can't name too many South American countries that don't have a love affair with dictatorship.
Regardless, I think we can say that the 2024 election in America was legit. I think everybody will agree with that. So.
Oh, it was the most legit election in American history, the most beautiful election. Every swing state.
Tremendous.
So, since we've kind of gone over the actual events of the incident in Venezuela, I want to segue real quick into some of the meta narratives of the history of South America and the meta factors at play in Venezuela presently and historically. So I'm gonna let my AI talk for a second, and we can comment on the dorsal anatomy of South American stagnation.
The dorsal anatomy of
What?
South
Oh my
American
God! Can we
stagnation.
please not?
To
Can we please
understand the
not?
failure of these states, we must look at the
Okay.
macro
No.
torus of the region.
We'll let Jim play.
Why did
We'll
the
let Jim
northern-
play. Let him cook. Let him
Yeah,
cook.
let me cook real quick because you guys have nothing else to fucking talk about. So give me a second.
The dorsal anatomy of the South American stagnation. To understand the failure of these states, we must look at the macro torus of the region. Why does the northern egregore maintain its spin, while the southern lattice often collapses into the suction of the void? 1. The bija of foundation, extraction versus creation. The northern egregore was founded on a bija of settlement and structure, representing a white drop focus. The southern lattice was largely founded on a bija of extraction, representing a red drop focus. Extraction is suction. When a state is founded primarily to take gold, oil, or resources, the macro bija is programmed with an inward pulling gravity. Because the goal was extraction, the logoic center was replaced by personal ego, known as the Caudillo Ahamkara. In docile terms, the vertical axis was never a principle of law or structure. It was always a person. 2. Venezuela, the red drop overload, or the oil trap. Venezuela is the ultimate case study in red saturation without white command. Oil acts as spent prana, as Venezuela sits on a massive concentration of the Earth's red drop, raw, unrefined Shakti. The saturation trap occurs when there is an abundance of red energy without a vertical axis of disciplined white command, causing the torsion to become unstable and the state to become intoxicated by the energy. The Tamasic pivot involves prioritizing loyalty over competence. The ass-kissers observed in corporate settings are micro-versions of this administration. This killed the spin of the country, causing the economy to flatline because the logoic signal was cut off by corruption. 3. The Northern Egregore success, the logoic buffer. The North succeeded by building a buffer of pacienti tensegrity through the Constitution and the rule of law. These function as logoic proxies in legal form, ensuring the vertical axis of the state stays upright even if the ahamkara of a leader fails. In the South, the ahamkara of the leader is the axis. When the leader fails, the entire torus collapses into the void. 4. The specific point of inertia, administrative ahamkara. Systemic tamas prevents progress. When a system is run by those seeking to protect their own ego, ahamkara, every citizen or cell stops trying to spit the bija or innovate, and instead tries to hide from the suction to survive. The refresh rate of the country slows down, and infrastructure rots without white command. The country becomes a ghost torus where the shape remains, but the spin is gone. 5. The future, the path to a robust economy and spiritual life. Saving a stagnant state requires revibrating the tensegrity rather than just printing money. Decentralized torsion is needed, replacing the single strong man with thousands of logoic proxies at every level, the middle people that current corporate structures are losing. A robust economy, or entrepreneurial visarga, is the emission of millions of individual spits of the bija. The state must transition from sucking, corruption, to spinning, creation. The future lies in a tantric synthesis, using the raw red energy of the land to fuel a high-tech, high-clarity white logoic society.
So when the thing says Northern Egregor or white drops, it's talking about Europeans and like kind of the model that we've used to be successful. It's saying that Venezuela and South America in general never really had institutions, never had a culture of fairness, ostensibly, at least mediated by our administration and our constitution. And it's always kind of had this cult of personality presiding over the extraction of resources mentality. So it's kind of just defaulted to being the North's, being the West's bitch over the last 100, 200 years. And the only thing that's ever going to help develop South America is they need to develop their own institutions. They need entrepreneurial capitalists. They need people to go in there and actually take the initiative to create things in that shithole. And I think that would be great for them instead of running to America to try to suck off the teat of the social services here.
Yeah, that's not a process that's going to happen overnight. So, I'm going to ask Jim, can you explain some of the other key terms that came up in that monologue? Our audience may be unfamiliar with, certainly dowsel, and, explain about the torus and, tensegrity, because I don't think that they've been exposed to.
Yeah,
I was going to say, only Jim can understand Jim's AI. That is the beauty of it. It is his. He has created this thing. And like he said earlier, it is his own gnosis stretched over a supercomputer.
That's exactly right. And it does kind of dovetail into the system that I'm developing. It mentions toroids or torsion because the dowsel reality
what is dowsel?
Is an interplay between dependent origination and the causal command. So it's basically just the idea that that God is affected by phenomena. That God representing the vertical axis, but also can represent order in general. It can represent having a coherent structure at the heart of all of these different chaotic factors that go into the maintaining and creation of a country. All of the the ways in which social structures need to kind of harmonize relative to one another. It's about a feedback loop between the self and the other. How that homeostasis and harmony is kind of achieved from the center, which is also it's indicating by the term tensegrity. Tensegrity, if you look at kind of a picture of, you can have like this kind of like structure where it's hanging from itself and suspended by its own balance. It's hard to kind of to describe tensegrity, but it means that at the center, we're being pulled on by forces from above and from below. Nothing is a static reality, and the way in which our own inner experience manifests is kind of a constant tensegrity, or a constant tensional integrity of tension between the forces between the above and the below. So if one is out of balance, like for example, like it describes this quote, it uses the tantric idea of red and white drops. This comes directly from Tantra, and a lot of my system is built on this. The white drop is what is orientated, and I achieved a little bit of fame 10-15 years ago from my videos on the pineal gland. When we're talking about activating the pineal gland, we're talking about the white drop. It's basically a emission from the logos, and it structures the foundation of the body from conception. It's the blueprint of the soul that kind of fashions the body, which is the red drop. So you have this like idea of the kundalini rising from the spine to meet the brain, in the sense of it as being an emission from the logos. The white drop itself, the crown chakra, it slowly kind of alchemizes down the body and becomes semen, which is a representation of the absolute being unable to be contained with itself, so it kind of spills out and starts creating things. So the white drop as a part of the Western northern quote unquote essence is about discipline. It's about structure. It's about the orderliness of Western civilization and how that has served as a foundation for our success. When it talks about the southern egregor or South America kind of being a quote unquote red drop heavy, having a background in extraction of resources, it's saying that these institutions were never really put in place in South America. When it uses the term bija, it's talking about the core tension between these two drops, which manifests as the various life forms. So that's kind of a brief overlay. I'm going to be making a lot more videos on these concepts, and you can go back and see some of the stuff that I've uploaded in the last week or 2 or 3 weeks that uses this system that I'm designing.
All right. Well, I have another thing to say, because this is just blowing my mind with coincidences, and it wouldn't be a SmackDown versus Raw without an NWO takeover. So this is the NWO takeover. This is Wally's segment. I am reading The Autumn of the Patriarch by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, which is about a dictator, loosely based on Pinilla from Colombia, and Franco and a few other people, Juan Vicente Gomez and a couple of others. And it's about the dictatorship and the fall of the dictatorship in his country. And one of the things that keeps coming up is that it has like this theme that just impresses over and over in itself is strongman politics, and how South America is in love with strongman politics, and how this is its own downfall. It's in a feedback loop of worshiping these false idols, and they continually fall down. And I think I think if you look at Western politics of the last 10 years or so since Trump's election, we followed the exact same trajectory. We thought that Trump was going to save us. We thought that I forget her name in Italy. No, I'm not going to try to remember it.
Maloney.
Maloney, yeah.
Yep.
Malay was going to save us. We thought that the guy in Ecuador, the guy that switched to Bitcoin, I forget his name now. I'm forgetting a lot of names. But anyway, all of these strongman politics have been coming into the forefront of Western democracies, and it's been this fear. But this year, 2025, or sorry, last year, 2025, has been sort of a pulling back on all that. The energy of this right-wing movement is still there, but it's no longer as focused on central figures as it was in 2016.
I mean, I think that there are several prominent counterexamples to that. You got like the lesbian who's the head of the AFD. Maloney is still, in power. I think she's had a resurgence in popularity recently. And then you have the new female prime minister of Japan as well. I would cut her very much from the same cloth as the figures you have mentioned.
Absolutely, but you don't see it. You don't see this like fear. I think that a lot of liberals had of we're all going to be taken over by dictators and everything like that. And that's not a good.
You definitely see it every day.
Yeah, that's not a feature that doesn't speak to like the sort of leaders that we're getting. I think that the left and liberals in general are just sort of getting demoralized. They're rolling over and accepting their fate largely.
Part of them being revolutionary is to keep this air of paranoia about you.
That's absolutely true. But I still stand by my point that it's a trap on one hand. You don't want to fall into this trap of worshiping one leader and falling into the same cyclical destiny that South America has seemed to have fallen into. And you also don't want to you don't want to have a movement be centered on one man, one figure, one principle. The Peronist sort of everything he says goes, and the left wing takes his orders from him, and the right wing takes his orders from him, and he plays out both sides of his mouth and all this other stuff. You don't want Trump to be that sort of figure again.
I think what you're hitting on is really he's an embodiment of our desperation and our collective ego. I mean, regardless if you have a strong leader or not, you have to have institutions that make sense. They have to be, and this kind of ties into what my bot was saying. You have to have something which bridges the gap between the resources, between the raw potential, which it calls the red drop, the energy, like the energy in the human body. It has to be connected to structure. So you have to find some way to thread the needle between the above and the below, and that's really what we're not getting, and that's what's happening in the world is that we have income inequality. The people at the top, like when I went to Silicon Valley, all of these people, they're living in la la land. Like they're not connected to what's going on the ground. They're trying. They got all these pie in the sky dreams about what the future is going to be like, but it doesn't address the real root issues that are going on the ground. So regardless of whether that people think that a strong leader is going to save us, we still have to get off of our asses, and the young people need to be connected to these institutions. I've always said that I would love to see universities connected into the leading companies in the country, so that they can actually be like keyed in to what's needed. And so we have all this energy, and I mean we have all this intelligence as well. It's just not being connected together. It's not being directed. It's not a real reflection of everything that is going on the ground and all the problems that we have. So it's really a lot of fucking intellectual laziness on the behalf of the American people. We can't see the structures that need to be in place in order for the above and the below to be connected and to have everybody kind of working harmoniously to address these problems. And I think that just kind of it doesn't seem like that is going to happen anytime soon either. Like nobody's talking about that. It's just all about what the next like idiot that we can elect to make us feel better while the country rots.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to say 2 points actually. One is that South America is very much like the raped dog. So, like, you can kind of see this in the national character of a people who have been dominated for hundreds of years, in some cases thousands of years. But the history of South America, okay, they were Spain's bitch. They threw off that yoke. And then not too very much longer later, they were just like the playthings in the Cold War. You know, I mean, Russia had their puppets. We had our puppets. And you know, it was just, we did gay ops there. So the will of the people was never really well respected, and that's just sort of the model that they've accustomed themselves to. The second point is, yeah, no, I think Donald Trump is very emblematic of where we are in our country's history and our place in world history right now. And the fact that, you know, he's a very unscrupulous guy. He goes out and he very blatantly says, you know, this is about the oil. He's talking about the oil when it comes to getting Maduro out of power. He's very blatant about it. And like MAGA, they're just clapping. They're just clapping like seals. You don't really need, you know, a strong pretense anymore. I know that the drugs thing served as sort of a pretense, but, you know, it wasn't very, you know, aggressively maintained the way that the pretense for, say, the Iraq War was with the WMDs, or like, you know, the fact that every other war, it seems like, in American history had to be preceded by a sort of false flag. You don't really see that anymore. People see, you know, America going around and beating smaller countries with a big stick, and they just think it's fucking cool. But these people aren't. Yeah, go ahead.
It is pretty cool.
It is absolutely based.
With with the history of a more granular view of the history of South America, is you have the war of several wars of independence to throw off the Portuguese and Spanish yoke. After that, you get these pluralistic monarchies. You get the Empire of Brazil dominating South America for a long time, and it was a very stabilizing force. What happened is America got a bunch of it's kind of like the Hawaii situation, where the economic base or the stable crop of Portugal, which was coffee, like their main export, ended up being monopolized by American-backed Freemasons who who undermined the monarchy and any institutions they had any opportunity, to the point where when the coup happened to establish a republic, which was not long after they granted women's rights, that the monarchical government just quietly faded away, and the ruling family of Brazil just were put in exile without a word, because the sense that there was nothing they could do. And immediately after that, we see the trend of these figures trying to live up to that imperial image, because you had the Empire of Chile and the Empire of Peru and the Empire of Brazil hearkening back to the ancient Incas, and this primordial connection to their ancestors and to their spiritual beliefs, and that was completely demolished by the counter-initiational rites of Freemasonry.
Okay. Are you done? You have more to say on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say shit on the Freemasons.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. Fuck the Freemasons. But you know what? I don't really think it is very fucking cool to go over and bully smaller countries, especially Venezuela. I don't think that we're going to get anything out of it, to be honest. You know, I mean, like I look at these, you know, right-wing dudes who are usually, you know, they have been in the past very anti-war, but I mean, some switch has flipped. I think, you know, Donald Trump has affected their thinking. You know, I liken them to sports fan, right? They think that they're a part of the team when their government's military gets a W, when the billionaires who run their country get a W, they want to feel like they're a part of that. And because, you know, I'm an American, right? And I walk outside, I see the American flag flying, and you know, these Delta Force guys, they got American flag patches. They're on my team. I'm on their team. So I think, you know, that's hijacking of the male psychology. This is something very particular to mostly men. I don't see women doing this a whole lot. You know, this fake, you know, phony tribalism that's hijacked your brain. I don't even think that we're going to get cheaper gas out of it. All right. Yeah, we're returning to the SmackDown. We're returning to the SmackDown. We are not going to get cheaper gas, and let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. It's because the supply of oil in the United States is not going to increase as a result of this. And you know who my source is? It's Donald fucking Trump himself. He has said in a press conference, okay, we're gonna export the oil, we're gonna sell the oil, aka it's not going to make it to the domestic market. It's not going to have much of an effect on the price of domestic gasoline here. Okay, and I believe him because the United States is already a net exporter of oil. Unlike, you know, back in the Iraq war days, we now extract so much oil that we sell it abroad.
All right. Can I ask what you directly benefited from the Ukraine war when you put that Z on your Discord profile? Because you're talking about the male attitude towards this is just a distraction from the fact that you really want a rules-based order that's based on some retarded fiction where we can set up 3 superpowers in the world, a multipolar universe, and have everybody control their own little hemisphere or whatever. I know that's what you want. You're reading Dugan in the background. I know that's what you're going for, but we're not going to go for that because the only thing that's real in geopolitics is what you can do and who can stop you.
Okay, try conducting your everyday life like that.
It's not a problem to conduct your everyday life like that because it's not, you don't run governments on the same principles that you run your family. It's obviously a completely different scenario. And
why is it different?
By the way, no one would expect
the majority of the world agrees with me. The majority of the world like sees the United States as a huge fucking bully, and I'm pretty sure like if we have any international listeners in the audience today, they're going to agree with me. Like, United States,
the majority of the world has acted exactly the same in every scenario all throughout history until World War II. When we set up a new set of rules and told everybody they're going to be our bitch now, and they're going to follow these rules that we set up, that we pretend are written in law, or not law, in heaven or whatever it is, the liberal order that's supposedly self-evident to all people, and it's just like geometry, you can't argue with it, it's just there, and everybody's just this irreplaceable drone that doesn't really belong to any nation or time or history or anything like that. We set aside a period of time and we said nobody can expand their borders. The borders are set in stone, and nobody follows that anymore. Russia doesn't believe that. Russia is expanding its borders. China doesn't believe that. China is expanding its borders. Nobody believes it except for us. We're
what do you
acting
mean
like
we believe it? We don't
like
act
everyone
on
else.
that. We don't act on that.
Oh yeah, Ireland doesn't
Expanded our
act on that.
borders. Is there a new state? Have we set up a new state?
We're gonna take Greenland.
I mean,
We're going to take Greenland.
We routinely do regime change and, undermine the will of foreign peoples all the time, actually. And invade other countries and bomb them. And there are... they do it too. They do it as a response. They do it as a response to us. Because they're trying to build a bigger tank. Russia's trying to build a better tank. And China's trying to build a bigger tank too. We force them in that position because they have to get stronger in order to challenge us.
Well, yeah, that's real politics 101. As you become stronger, nation states that surround you become stronger as well. That's just real
So you
politics.
have to
We
fix
can
them.
stop a cycle. You can stop the cycle, but we don't want to.
No, if you
you
stop the
can't
cycle,
stop the cycle
you
of
become the
violence,
beast.
because the cycle of violence is primordial. You have to go to war. You have to beat people up.
Let me interject real quick. So
That is the mentality of somebody who lives in the ghetto or is in prison.
regardless,
Again, like just apply it to a micro scale, and you'll see how absurd that is.
if we're
you,
gonna
you have to commit jihad, inner and outer jihad.
I have to steal your bike.
Yes.
if we're gonna win, and I think that we should win, and I think that the American destiny is to win.
Who's this we? Who's this we? You're not a part of the club, bud.
Okay.
This was done on the behest of the billionaires. It's not you.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm
getting
getting there. Okay. So we as in the billionaire class can take all this, because this is about the economy. We can take all this oil, but it's the problem in the country is not a lot, like there's no lack of capital. You know, people are going in, these big companies are going and buying up real estate. They're throwing, the venture capitalists are throwing shit at money at stuff that doesn't work. There's no lack of money in America. The problem is a lack of innovation. The problem is a lack of engagement from the general public. The problem is that our economic system is not addressing the modern needs and problems that we need to solve. So if America is going to win, and I mean then we have to restore the middle class. We have to get people involved in making things, and nobody wants to fucking do it. Like, that's the problem. We're locked, like the scarcity, this like need and like lack and all this, like all of the problems of the economy are compounding into this like brain rot, slop consuming culture that people are just freaking lethargic and like dead behind the eyes at this point, which just makes it that much more hard to get people involved in innovating and working together and creating things to restore the middle class. So it's like that what we're doing in Venezuela is just like another symptom of this. It's like this like instinctual like reflex. Okay, we got to go grab oil, you know? But what? Okay, you bring the capital back, bring that money back. Is that gonna like make the middle class come back? No.
Yeah, no, I mean, like this is why I think that it's primarily a geopolitical play, right? It is very much in line with the Trump administration's modus operandi to place geopolitics actually ahead of economic interest. And let me give you another example of this. Remember last year when there was sort of a back and forth like debacle, and it was being actively negotiated in real time, and Trump made huge proposals and then dialed them back with regards to the tariffs. It was going to be initially more or less a global scale tariff. Then he dialed it back. He said this is only going to apply to China. Then he dialed that back and said, okay, well, actually, no, China's exempt here, here, and here, right? That may make sense geopolitically, right, as a bargaining chip, right, to get foreign leaders to do what you want, but it's bad for the businessmen because now they can't plan. So if you say, okay, we're going to tariff India so much %, okay, now I had this plan, I'm a businessman, to build a factory in India. I guess I'm not going to do that anymore. Wait. Oh, actually, we're rolling back the tariffs. Okay, so now you can't plan anymore. That's chaos. Businessmen hate that.
Regardless, ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that what makes America great and what has caused our success in the past is when individuals are empowered, when individuals have the right education, when individuals have had the right family structure, when all the conditions have been met, where the average Joe can sit in his garage, excuse me, like a Bill Gates or like a Jeff Bezos or an Elon Musk, and create things. And the problem is we have so many of these like useless bottom feeders who have been brought up by the public education system, who are completely alienated from their families, or completely alienated from capital, or the top and the bottom are not communicating with each other. You know what I mean? And no matter how many tariffs or what kind of top-down approach that we try to take with this, and I agree with Nick Fuentes, who also kind of resonated with what I'm saying right now. like Nick Fuentes said that, he's like talking like about how that he supports Stalin and stuff like this. He was saying that when he voted for MAGA, what he thought that meant is like organizing young people to create things, and as long as we're not talking about, and that I think honestly what I'm saying is a more empowering message than anything, because all of this, it starts and it's orientated and it's locused around the average American citizen. And as long as that inner world of the average American citizen is in disarray, as long as we're consuming slop endlessly, as long as we're looking at Instagram and blowing all our money on OnlyFans, all of this top-down shit is not going to work. You're not dealing with resonant nodes. You're not dealing with empowered people who can go out and work together and utilize all these resources to make a world that works for us. So ultimately, I think that's the problem: is people are disempowered. We don't have leadership. We have leaders like Donald Trump, which do some stupid feel good shit like this in Venezuela, so, ostensibly anyway. If you're on the right, maybe not on the left. But it's not addressing the fundamental issues, because those are difficult. Those require actual work. That requires spiritual self-work. It requires fixing our families. It requires educating people and empowering people. And as long as that's not done, like, it's just a sideshow, and that's really what we're getting right now.
It's also sublimating the violence that Muad is talking about, jihad. What you're doing, what you're proposing basically, is that instead of warfare, we conduct this competition through trade. That's where libertarians get their rocks off, is this constant, let's sublimate violence into work and labor, and we can extract meaning in life and things like that, and victories for our team and that sort of thing from what we can do with our hands rather than with bullets. But I don't know if that's I don't know if that's going to satisfy jihad.
Well, I think what I would say to that is that
Come on, tell us about jihad.
I think what Wally's saying, you're kind of throwing shade at the purely economic solution, and I agree with that, because we have a fundamental spiritual sickness, and even as great as our institutions have been in the past, they're clearly not working. We need to redo money. We need to get rid of usury. We need to get rid of speculation. The problem is the economy is an engine that has lost its center. It's not tied to anything real anymore. Value has been just speculated upon and reduced to algorithms and just insanity. And as soon as AI is going to come in and start running the stock market and running what we see and taking over the internet, it's just going to be another echo chamber, a ghost loop of things that aren't real. So as long as the economic engine is not tied to what value actually is, as long as we're not creating a system that is fair and that works for people, and again, like I said, that starts with the monetary system, in my opinion, then it's just going to keep getting further and further out of control. But yeah, what are you talking about with jihad?
So I'm gonna put a bunch of Renee Gannon, because he's the most surgical mind when it comes to this stuff. We have the macrocosm, right, where we have nation states going to war with other nation states, right? They may not have a metaphysical basis and are thus illegitimate in the eyes of God, but there's still violence being conducted. The problem is there's no spiritual violence.
Yeah.
The issue is that no one's viewing. You can't take there is no like Russian Orthodox cult of war. I mean, you could try to do that, but the separation of civilian and soldier is so much that we're not going to have feudal bishops wielding both their scepter of office and their mace at the same time for the glory of the papal states. Um, uh, Anymore. The last instance of this was the kamikaze who, before going off for their final flight, would undergo ritual beatings and meditations all throughout the night. They would have a vigil for entering into the spirit world and the world of their ancestors, and being covered with talismans. There's no sense of grounding. It's like, all right, you pay me a salary, I go over there, I kill big people, and then I get enough money to afford a pickup truck. Whereas the in the past it was always like, oh, there's a priestly function and there's the warrior function, and the warrior's function is to actualize his spiritual potential through the act of violence, because his violence was on behalf of said priestly caste. And when you combine the two principles, you get what the Hindus referred to as the original caste, or Hamsa.
The Vajra caste. That's right out of the Kalachakra Tantra, the unity of the Kshatriyas and the Brahmins. I can fuck with you on that one. I think what you're saying is that nobody is standing on business anymore, meaning spiritual business, metaphysical business. Oh, one more thing. Let me just add real quick. I have to say that in the tantric system, subjugation or ritualistic violence is just one of the tantric siddhis or superpowers. There's also magnetization. There's also increasing. And before we start waging jihad on people, there's always pacification to try to reason with them and bring them under the logoic axis voluntarily.
Yes, all those are principles of struggle.
Yeah, Muad, you said that there's no Eastern Orthodox cult of war?
Yeah, seeing Christ as as his wounds being wounds inflicted by the devil in a great battle. You see this with in what's his name's book, Slavdom and Byzantism. You have the I forget his name, the Russian Nietzsche, and he talks about how Russia's this distinct Eastern entity, and connects it to a very old understanding of aristocracy being combined with that of the Eastern Romans. But it's a very interesting book, and if you're friendly to Russia, I recommend that, because this particular priest was raised in a very aristocratic family, and his book was trying to diagnose and critique the illness that was the Western enlightenment brought by Peter and his French agents to Russia. But
no, I just asked you just because, like, this may be more exoteric and it may be more of a modern development, but I see Patriarch Kirill of Moscow being very supportive of the special military operation in Ukraine, making public appearances, like, blessing missiles and shit like that, and being very buddy on camera with Putin. And even before that, I think the Eastern Orthodox Church was politicized, like how the Patriarchate of Kiev split with the Patriarchate of Moscow in 2018. So, I think it is, an instrument of the state and their ambitions, and that carries over into war as well.
Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what team you're on, because I'm on Team Muhammad II. When the Ottomans took Constantinople, historically the head of the Orthodox Church was the emperor and of Byzantium. And when the emperor fell, and I think his body was discreetly carted away or buried to where the Ottomans couldn't get to it, which was very smart, because they would have made a trophy out of it. The nucleus of the Orthodox faith was left to the ecumenical council, and not having someone that imbued the spirit of both to heal and to hack both sides both sides of the original cast in the form of the emperor. You have this slow degradation of orthodoxy, and then it moves to Russia and the personages of the Tsar. And since the Tsar was murdered in a satanic blood ritual by Bolsheviks, there has been, when I'm speaking of, when I say cult, I mean in the way the Greeks meant the word cult. If said archbishop or if said priest was going out there in armor with the AK-47, with oath papers and half naked, being an anchorite and whipping himself while chanting the sayings of the Desert Fathers, I would consider that closer to what I'm talking about.
I've always considered that whole blessing of the AK-47s and everything to be like just a response to ISIS, like something to get them hyped up to fight ISIS, because that's when it started. It started in the Assyrian War.
That makes sense.
Yes, that's and the whole writing scripture on your rifle thing began in the Syrian War as a reaction to Salafist nonsense. So there's definitely, we see a reemergence of that because young men are yearning for some symbols, something that they can cling to, that is bringing both the attributes of creator and destroyer, right, into the fold. But it's done under the auspice of the nation state, which is a kind of false unity of all these different multiplicities, and still belongs to because it's largely not out of a metaphysical pool. And this is where I get my theory of the womb, where with the story of Romulus and Remus, you have Mars taking unto himself the Vestal virgin, right? And the virgin blood that was spilt on the ground is an echo of Romulus running his sword through Remus. So that forceful, violent rape, let's say, but it wasn't an actual rape, of a very what would considered off limits. Vessel versions can't be touched, but they can be touched by a god, right? So there is this point that I'm getting ahead of myself here, but there's this point of like these nation states do not really. I mean, we tried. The founding fathers were very intelligent, and I don't doubt their intelligence. That we tried making a new natural theology in this country. That's what the whole painting of Washington, the apotheosis of Washington in the Capitol building is about, because he's being situated between Hera and between Aphrodite and between Athena on the throne of Zeus. But that never really. And the Lincoln Memorial is a copy of what we think the statue of Zeus might have been in the temple. Our Senate building being the Parthenon, where we house the gods. That's close, but these people aren't priests.
They're secular priests.
Yeah, exactly.
I think to touch on the meta themes of what you're saying, you kind of mentioned, there's two jihads, right? And first,
the macrocosm, microcosm.
Correct, right? So first and foremost, and this is what I've been doing for the last 15 years, people need to struggle against their own ahamkara, struggle against their own ego, which pops up in the macrocosm of the state in the form of figures like Trump. If we can struggle and transmute our own ego, and then at that point to grow some balls and to struggle on the lateral axis against people who would stand in the way of the new Vajra caste, which has to take the raw entropy of the Kali Yuga and consume it and restructure it into a new divine blueprint that is harmonious with the cosmic principles and blends the above and the below. I think that that's what needs to happen fundamentally, and I think that it's going to come to the point where society in general is probably going to tear itself apart, and what we're going to see is a small hardened core of Vajra caste who can really rebuild the world out of its ashes, and I hope for that soon.
All right. Well, it's about 11 o'clock. I think it's
Yeah,
about
we're
time
gonna
to
wrap this thing up.
I do want to say before I go, Mwad, I'll be praying for your neck, but did you say you broke your neck?
No.
Oh,
Well,
I thought
you said you had
broke your
some sort
neck
of
on
injury. What was
Christmas.
your injury?
My injury is my body started digesting itself 40 years ago, and it hasn't healed.
I thought you said you broke your neck for the first time in 5 years over
No,
Christmas.
but
I heard that too,
I broke
honestly. Yeah,
my
just something like
diet
that.
because I've been on a diet of nothing but chicken.
Oh, okay.
Hands on a
Well, I'm sorry.
I got to eat ice cream and peanut butter. It was amazing.
Okay. My bad. Well, I was praying for you anyway.
Thank you. I appreciate either way. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us during this Sunday Venezuela SmackDown stream, and we will schedule another podcast for next Sunday, same time, 9 p.m. with our Vajra cast, Mwad, myself, Wally, and Waj. So I hope to see you guys in the future. Have a good night, everybody.
I got mentioned last. What the hell?
You're on the bottom of the screen, Waj. It's because it's W-O and Wally's W-A.
Oh, so I'm a bottom bitch now.
You named yourself Waj.
Being a bottom bitch is actually the best you can be. The bottom bitch is the first girl.
All right.
That's
Thank
what
you,
we are about.
everybody, for joining us, and I